All right, so I often get this question, why do you have a Fujifilm X-Pro3 and a Fujifilm X100V? Well, I'm gonna do a little bit of a versus, a little bit of a comparison, and really talking about how they both fit into my photography and the shit that I do. Let's do this.
But God might be on vacation, and the promised land they ain't never promised. My baby telling me to be patient, but the devil always working overnight, my darling.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Gajan. Thank you so much for checking this video out. If it's your first time here, please do consider hitting that subscribe button because you'll find a ton of great content around Fujifilm gear, but not just that, a ton of unique content around traveling, creating content, interesting tutorials that help you get up and running, and really in-depth reviews that are more about the experience and nuance of these cameras and not just the speeds and feeds. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I think you'll enjoy this channel. Anyways, I wanted to make this video to help people decide between these cameras, and certain things might be more obvious than others, but also talk about how these fit into my content production, how I use them, and why I have both. So let's talk about the first one, and that is the Fujifilm X100V. As I mentioned time and time again in my reviews, this is my companion camera, and having something that caters toward candid moments, to street photography, to having something that's just on your side, easy to use, and designed in a way that is just absolutely gorgeous, that makes you and invites you to continue using it. That's what this camera is all about. In my opinion, it is the most beautiful modern Fujifilm camera. It is simply attractive and allows you to just feel like you're closer to the moment the way it's designed. Now, I know that sounds hyperbole to some, but when you actually pick up and start using it, and if you have the luck to actually own one of these things, because hey, not everyone can have a camera like this, I think it's something that you'll come to really, really enjoy. I use this for those candid moments. I use this when I want to take a digital camera with me wherever I'm going. It's the first camera I reach for when I'm not doing professional photography. It's the camera that accompanies my Leica M6 when I want to go on a digital and film journey. I don't know if I would be capturing as much as I did if I didn't have a camera like this. And what's unique about a product like this is that it is something that really contends with a Leica Q2. And I know Leica users are gonna fucking shit on me or roast me for this, but hear me out. At the end of the day, there is enough here to capture remarkable imagery. There is enough here to capture absolutely stunning shots. And while a Leica Q2 might excel in certain categories, and especially when you start to pixel peep, there's no denying what the Fujifilm X100V brings to the table, and especially in a smaller, more portable, and in some cases, a more inviting form factor. What I also love about the X100V, and if you are a professional and you're considering this, maybe you're a wedding photographer, I love having this as a behind the scenes sort of camera. So I'll go to a professional setting, not really relying on this camera, but I'll give this to one of my assistants or the makeup artist or the stylist and tell them to have fun with it, to go and just capture shots and capture unique angles and perspectives. And you'll usually get some really interesting moments that flesh out the story, if not for the final campaign, at least for your own self, the things you might share on social media, or who knows, just keep to yourself. It's something that I found almost as a surprise, almost serendipitous in a way, but because of how beautiful it is and how rewarding it is, and the feedback you get when you have some really good custom profiles set. And that's maybe a shameless plug because I share all my custom profiles on this channel. You can check that out if you're interested. But when you have that feedback and people are using this, even people that are not photographers, they're really gonna enjoy a product like this. So again, if you are comfortable with that 35mm equivalent perspective, if you're largely capturing candid, fun, street travel moments, or if you find yourself in a special setting where you need that companion camera to whatever else you're doing, primarily with a Fuji, Canon, Nikon solution, that X100V really stands out for those kinds of scenarios. Now let's talk about the Fujifilm X-Pro3. This is the camera that I rely on, that I love, that I pick up, that I take with me anytime that I am capturing pro photography, meaning that it is being shot for a client or a campaign or an editorial or a magazine, whatever it may be. This is the camera that I reach for. This is the camera that I rely on. And no, I am not intimidated by the APS-C sensor because, again, photography technique and talent will really give you, well, in all honesty, award-winning shots. I've shot a couple of images that were lucky enough to be recognized by international agencies with this camera right here. I also use it for travel as a lens that's added on to now the X100V, where the X100V is sort of the primary street travel camera, but I'll throw on an interesting or unique perspective on the X-Pro3, such as a 35 or a 50, and use that for certain moments where I want a different perspective. But that's the B camera in those situations. For me, you have the design which also largely resembles the X100V, albeit it doesn't have that dedicated ISO dial that pops up and stays there. The hidden display is also something I talked about before, where I enjoy that in professional photography settings and even in some street candid settings where I don't want to be looking at the screen when I'm capturing unless I want to hit a low angle, in which case I think it's the best camera for low angle photography. But I talk about that in my review, so you can always check that out if you want more information about that. The X-Pro3, it gives you the option to use all kinds of lenses, and that pretty much sums up, if you're deciding between the two, which one you might want to cater toward. But there is also the added element of what you produce for a living. If you find yourself in professional settings, if you find yourself being hired for work, if you find yourself, doing things largely beyond street and candid content, you will gravitate toward the X-Pro3 a bit more. And after a year of putting a ton of reps on this camera, I've deepened my love and affection for this product, but I also have come to understand even deeper, even more importantly, why certain people won't like this product and won't have it as part of their collection. Anyway, that's where I use the X-Pro3 more, and that's how I get more out of that camera. Now, here's something I want to answer with this video is there room for both of these cameras? In my answer, yes. And well, it's kind of obvious because of all the stuff I've been talking about and producing that I have both of them. The reason I enjoy both of these cameras is because they largely serve specialized needs. And there's always the joke of gear acquisition syndrome and gas and all that kind of stuff. And to that I say, well, shit, at the end of the day, if you have the resources and the means, get all the specialized tools you want to tell the best story possible. That's where I stand, and I will continue to stand there. No, you should not go broke over it or, get out a second mortgage over this stuff. But if you have the opportunity, if you have the resources, why not invest in the tools to tell the best story you can, especially while your time here is as limited as it is. And that's why I have both, because when I'm in a street travel scene, I like the X100V more for that environment, especially when I'm just not going with the intention of capturing images, but I happen to have a camera with me that can take phenomenal images. And when I'm in a professional setting, I like the fact I have a camera that gets out of the way, that isn't as distracting, that is really, really refined, allows me to use any one of the great lenses that Fujifilm makes and be in the moment as best as possible. And that's where the X-Pro3 fits in. So there is definitely an opportunity where people might have both in their collection. And I think if you're someone that has an X-Pro3, you might be more likely to have an X100V as well. Whereas if you're someone that has an X100V, I don't think you'll necessarily be as likely to have an X-Pro3, if that makes sense. In any case, there's definitely a market for both, but I want to end this off on opening up this discussion to you all, to you watching this video. Do you think that you would gravitate to one or the other? Why or why not? And also, do you think that there is an opportunity to have both as part of someone's collection, or am I just talking nonsense at this point? Anyway, that is a quick retrospective of these two cameras and how I've been using them over the last year and what kind of mileage and usage and moments I've been capturing from them. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, my name is Gajan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.